The views and opinions expressed in these historical letters that may contain vernacular used in the World War II era, the post-war era, and the Cold War era do not reflect the views and opinions of any of the individuals involved with this project, including, but not limited to, the podcast's creators. Morning, Jamie.
Good morning, Allison.
How are you doing?
I got coffee, so I'm great.
Same. And, it snowed last night here in Bucks County, so it looks like winter wonderland outside.
Oh, how lovely.
Yeah. Of course, they didn't put salt down in the borough from, allegedly, they didn't put salt down in the borough from Facebook posts, so, but that seems typical of my borough. So, I'm letting the sun melt some of the ice and snow.
Well, this morning, we're not going anywhere. We got our coffee, and we've got our letters. I'm excited about today.
Yeah, we have some great letters today. We also have some historical context. It's been a little while since we were talking about what was going on in history. We were talking about how that European theater in World War II is starting to look like the tides have really turned in favor of the Allies, especially at this point. 45, it's like, okay, things are starting to wind down in Europe, but Japan is very much active, extremely active. That's not to say it's not active in other areas of the war, but all sights are kind of turning towards Japan as things are starting to really collapse for the Axis powers in Europe. Italy's already out. The Soviet Union has pushed back on the Eastern Front, which is huge. That's going to be really, really huge. But then we also have, at the end of the year, we were talking about Harry Truman as the VP. And we were talking about the election of 1944. And we have this landslide election and record-breaking election for FDR's fourth term as the president.
Wow.
Can you imagine? Yeah.
No.
Fourth term. Right. And it's like 400 plus to 99 for Dewey. So the election happens, but now we're in 1945. And so FDR is still president. Wallace is still the vice president. But our first letter today is actually from January 31st. So what happens before January 31st? Because the last letter we read in the last episode was January 19th. But there's something that happens between January 19th and January 31st. And we have to cover this because it is a historic fourth term. And that's the inauguration of FDR for the fourth term. And the inauguration, the swearing in of Harry Truman as vice president. Now, if our audience listened to the episode where we were talking about the first meeting of Roosevelt and Truman, we're starting to get pretty nervous about the health of President Roosevelt from that episode. So we should pick up that storyline just a little bit because we have the inauguration of the historic fourth term of Roosevelt and Harry Truman officially becoming the vice president on January 20th. And there's no better way to do this, of course, than turning back to our great friend here. We go back to David McCullough. We go back to the book. Nobody would say otherwise. Anybody who would, I have nothing for you. And for anyone following along at home, go to page 332 for people that are following along. But we get coverage here of the inauguration day for 1945.
Oh.
And, I mean, we're in the middle of a war. We have a president that just won a landslide, right? 400 plus electoral college votes. So what we'd expect is parades, big celebrations. I mean, this episode's going to air just a couple weeks before Inauguration Day 2025. Isn't that neat how that's going to line up?
And also a very historical, I think, inauguration. Right. So, yes.
Yeah.
But yes, I would love, please.
What was this like? Because, I mean, obviously it had to be a big day. Every patriotic sentiment in the country is at the highest level, right? Extremely popular. And so we turn to McCullough and we're going to see how this goes. And here's what he says about the inauguration of Roosevelt for the fourth term. In deference to the tragedy of war and the president's limited strength, the inauguration at noon, January 20th, 1945, was a somber affair lasting less than 15 minutes. It was the first wartime inauguration since Lincoln, and the first ever held at the White House, the ceremony conducted on the South Portico before a crowd that included numbers of disabled soldiers. A thin crust of snow covered the lawn. The day was grim. There were no parades. The red jackets of the Marine Band were the one note of cheer in the whole chill, muted scene. Truman, wrapped in a heavy dark blue overcoat, his shoulders braced as if at attention, took the oath of office from Henry Wallace, a serious look on his face. Then the president was helped to his feet by his Marine son Jimmy and a Secret Service agent. Roosevelt wore only a thin summer weight suit and moved slowly, stiff-legged, from his braces until he could reach out and grip the edge of the lectern. And that's basically it. And the brilliance of McCullough here is he doesn't write any more really about the inauguration because it only went for 15 minutes and it's done. And this is how Harry Truman comes in as vice president. So, short excerpt, but it's a short thing. And when our audience, when we're listening to the inauguration 2 weeks after this episode airs, to see the contrast, because the thing we'd expect, here's a guy that really landslided, fourth term, 400 plus electoral college votes, but is clearly in failing health. And 15 minutes later, no parades, no nothing, done. So I thought that was something to keep in mind, because we don't really hear too much, or at least I didn't have a visual. I thought it was, inauguration, there's a crowd, parades, all the rest. Absolutely nothing of the sort during World War II. So,
but important to note.
Yeah,
important to note.
And before we get into the letters today, please check out the Love Sweetie Podcast's website, www.lovesweetiepodcast.com. If you could like, share, and subscribe to the YouTube videos, click that bell to get notifications when new episodes are available. We'd appreciate that. And if you'd leave us a review on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, the other audio channels that you might be listening on, we appreciate that. But we'll pick up the story now with Sweetie in Kansas on January 31st, 1945.
Hutchinson, Kansas, January 31st, 1945. Dear Jeanne, I can't remember what I did with my fountain pen, so I guess I'll have to substitute with a pencil, at least to write a short letter. I'm sorry not to acknowledge the bracelet before, but I've been sick. I've been a trifle under for the past few days, and writing has been the last thing I've thought about. We both think the bracelet is nice. It was a little big, but Lou bent it for me. Tell your friend thanks, and thanks to you too. We couldn't get KRNT on our little radio, so I went downstairs a day or two ahead of time to try and find it on Mrs. Park's big radio, but I didn't have any luck. So as a last resort, I got up anyway and tried to get it. I thought I might be able to recognize the program, but I guess it can't carry this far. I'm especially sorry since she won, but your account was good, and so we weren't entirely left out. Thanks to you. I'm glad you enjoyed it, and I hope she is equally successful on the big final.
And just to pause real quick here to give a little context of what's going on here. There's some sort of, I think, mutual family friend that succeeded or achieved with something that's being covered on the radio, but they just can't get the station. They can't get that coverage, so they're trying to adjust the dials. Like when you're driving, if you've been on like FM, and as you leave like certain states, you're listening to like your public radio, but it starts to just go shh, right, and it disappears into like the next public radio station. You're like, okay, we gotta give up on this now. My parents sometimes are so trying to listen to the Pennsylvania public radio stations, especially from like the Philadelphia area. I've tolerated far too much of like a broken up program being like, we're going over a mountain, it's over, you can't hear it anymore.
Let it go.
Not happening. So I can only
see now in this, that is something that they and I've had to deal with too when I would travel, like when I was in college. But now we have Sirius XM and those satellite radio, and it's just the same station no matter what. It's beautiful. It's beautiful. Yes. So, but she wasn't able. So, we don't know the details of the contest or or what the accomplishment, but that's very nice that she was able to share in that.
Yeah.
We certainly were surprised to hear Frank had flown in. That must have been quite unexpected, don't you think? I do wish we could see him, but you know the Navy red tape. Lou's 1945 leave comes the first day of March. They are having all 1942 men take their leave now, because in all likelihood they'll soon be shipped out. We tried last night to push it up, but no go. I've got a wire from his mom yesterday morning saying that his daddy had had a bad spell with his heart, and that we should expect momentary call. So again, we're between the devil and one deep blue sea. Lou says I should come alone, but I've been in bed since Saturday night, and feeling this way, I couldn't start out by train. He says just for a couple of days, but that makes it just that much more improbable. I'm writing this lying down, so excuse my scribble. We had to cash in war bonds to go to Philly, and we're just now getting back. Navy pay again. I could... to come there, and then have to dash on to Philly? Everything comes at once, it seems. I wish you'd write us as soon as you know what the plans are. Will you? Lou is painting the kitchen, in between looking after me and cooking, doing dishes, going to the store, and, of course, getting off to work by 3. He's been so nice about it all, though. I wish I could show him off to Maida and Frank. I'm sure I'd pop my coat buttons. I'm so proud of him. Well, now you know why I haven't written to you better, but I'm feeling better now, so maybe I can soon get back into the old groove. I'm going to try to write to the folks. We got a card this morning saying Frank and Maida would be there soon, and that they were busy. I'd like you to write often, so we won't be so left out down here in this place. Write soon. Love, Sweetie, and Lou.
So she missed seeing her brother.
She did.
Which is sad. And then also Lou's dad isn't doing as well, but we do know that his mom is a little bit of a worrywart.
Yeah, it's tough to tell, but he has been unwell. She's probably really wanting to get Lou back to Philadelphia. It's like, okay, there's only so many trips we can make on a leave in the service to get between Kansas and Philadelphia. And then just Sweetie's under the weather, pretty significantly, to the point where she's writing a letter lying in bed, as she knows. So we're going to have to find out what all that's about. But she writes within a week later. Our next letter comes in February 6th of 1945.
Hutchinson, Kansas, February 6th, 1945. Dear Jeanne, since our return home, there has not been a scrap of paper big enough to write on in this house. I made a trip uptown today for it, forgot it, and had to stop at a little grocery store on the way home. This was all they had, but at least I'll answer the letter we got this a.m. and try to express our thanks for your extravagant hospitality. I guess I shall begin at the very beginning, in order to get everything in order. I was quite uncomfortable from Des Moines to Kansas City. A hungry, sickish feeling that wasn't appeased by sandwiches, train style, a slice of luncheon meat smacked between 2 fast-drying-out hunks of bread. But I feasted upon aspirin, and since the diner was the car in front of us, I entertained myself by watching people going to and coming from a good dinner. Drool, drool. We got to Kansas City at 8:45. Our next train out was at 11:30. So we checked the bag and with another couple caught a cab to town. Because of the brownout marquees were not lit, and it was hard to see any place that was open. Leave it to me. I got hungry, and we went into Liggett's to appease my appetite. We sat for a while and found it was too late then to try to do anything, movie or what, so we'd just look around a while and go back on to the station. Lou found a small loose-leaf 3-ring binder for his stamps, and I've sent his folks some picture postcards. We walked the streets, amazed to see liquor selling by the case, a while, and caught a streetcar back to Union Station. I was feeling much better, but I was quite tired. We looked around the station for something to buy, but we couldn't find anything, so at last we went to sit down on the benches and wait. They posted a notice that our train would load passengers at 12:10, so I went to sleep on Lou's coat as a pillow. I forgot to say gardenias were selling at 10 cents apiece, and jonquils at some equally low price. We were tempted to send you some, but from all appearances they were turning brown too quickly, and we didn't think they'd be nice by the time they got to you. At 12:10 we got in line to stand until 20 minutes, till 1, when they called it from another gate, and we all turned and ran. It wasn't as crowded as we'd expected, and we each had a seat. I laid down and fell asleep before we left the station and stayed asleep till we got to Topeka. Thanks to the Biffy, laid down again and went to sleep. Wake up once more before we hit Hutch. We went just across the street and had bacon and eggs before we came home, since our cupboard was bare. We got home and, yep, went to bed and to sleep again. Ah me, you can't imagine such bliss. Well, we're doing pretty well by now.
Oh my goodness.
They've had a trip to Des Moines, it would seem.
Yeah, so they had a trip, and then and she was just getting back from her trip. So she saw she saw Jeanne. She must have seen Jeanne. I mean, Jeanne's in Des Moines.
Yep.
So they went there for some little trip, which was nice, especially given that his leave wasn't supposed to happen until March.
Right. Yeah.
So, and then, oh my gosh, like I know that she has talked about the train stations before and how like when it's ready, when you're ready to go load on, and like so they and then everybody's like,
gotta book it now. And she's like, I kind of panicked a little early. Chicago, I always feel has this sense of like run for it. Kansas City, I think during this time period would have as well. But for whatever reason, it's like, okay, panicked a little more than we needed to on this one.
Well, they were at another gate. They were all everybody was expecting it to be at another gate. So but then but at least she did get some sleep. That's good.
She did. And I like her description of the food here, where she's like, oh, I really want to go to the real dining car up there, but I just got this really lame sandwich. So, yeah. And like she's not feeling well. We knew she'd been sick like a week earlier, still made the trip. And then like her appetite's all over the place. So, and that's certainly not helping anything, but we'll see how she's feeling since now she's gotten some rest and they returned to Hutchinson.
Sunday was Lou's day off and my off day, so we just stayed home and played with stamps. Oh yes, Lou has been made a plane captain. Don't ask me what duties it entails, but I do know he leaves home at 2 in order to report at 20 till 4, and he gets home at about the same time at night. On March 11th, he starts work at 7 a.m. With luck, he'll get home at about 3. I don't know what time he'll have to leave here to get there on time. The stamps that came this a.m. are, to be painfully honest, worthless to us since they are very common, and we have them all anyway. However, we do think it was a very nice gesture on Mr. Courtney's part to send them, so you tell him we did appreciate them. We were quite skeptical about an only child being willing to give up something like that, so we really weren't so terribly surprised, though we were disappointed. But the Florida issue came out today, and he drowned his sorrow in a splurge. I hope you do not buy more than 1 or 2 blocks at the most.
Yeah, let's talk about the stamps here a little bit. For people that aren't as into stamp collecting, and it is seemingly a decreasing number of people over time, simply because there's just not as much coming and going in the mail. So naturally, people aren't using stamps as much. There's so much digital messages going on, but it's still a rather large collecting hobby. Lou and Sweetie are really getting more into the hobby. And so they must have gotten a piece of a collection from a friend that they're appreciating. The thing with stamps is it's difficult to find like the one stamp that's worth a lot. And they're going to the library and they're going places to check the guides to see the values. So they're building their collection. There's the 3-ring binders and everything that goes with that. And I encourage people that are interested in this to go on YouTube. There's a lot of videos about stamp collecting and sorting, and the resources we have today to be able to look at things that are in different languages is really interesting. But she also mentions here a couple of phrases that are actually stamp collecting terms that people might be, what did she mean by that? When they listen to this, the Florida issue came out today. So that's the issuance of a new stamp, probably having to do with the state of Florida. And the blocks, she mentions the blocks, don't buy more than 1 or 2 blocks at the most. So, and she also says Lou drowned his sorrow in a splurge. So he's splurging by buying some blocks of this Florida issue that came out. And we do have lots of the blocks that they collected. And he later organizes them in a chest, and they actually staple them into these really nice holders. So they did all this work to sort them out. I'd put some aside, but for example, and I'll put these up on the website, some of the blocks of these really exclusive ones. The artwork's great. This is just the U.S. Navy stamp. So you can see they're unused, and the block, right, is the connected stamp here. They're still not worth that much, but in a collection where all of them are together, that's really the notable thing, is that, they bought some extras of things, and they keep the blocks intact, uncirculated. though sometimes apparently in the stamp world, when they circulate and have an unusual stamp in them, they can even become more rare. There's a whole thing, but this is the Iowa centennial stamp. So it's got the flag of Iowa and the little, it's got this little corn design, the cornflower on the side. Really pretty. I'll put them on the site.
Alice, I was going to say, will you please put these up on the website?
Yeah, I'll put them on the website so you can see the designs of these historical stamps. But that's what the block is. That's what the Florida issue is. She's not going to talk about stamps all the time. So if people are worried, like, are we going to hear these long passages?
No. This is just one of the things, one of the many interests of Lou and Sweetie.
Right. It's like downtime. That's what they're going to be sorting through because they've got the radio. They're going to sit there at home and they're going to sort stamps and look at the catalogs and things.
That's adorable.
Mm-hmm.
Today, we opened the baby bank and counted dimes until they totaled $47. We were surprised that there was so much. Need I say we were pleased? So we went uptown and bought a dozen flannelette diapers, 27 inches by 27 inches. Seemed to be of fairly good quality, but I hardly know how many more to get. I'd like to have some cure-de-young gauze to use when he is little, to fold smaller and flatter. What do you think?
What do we think, Jamie?
I don't know. What do you think?
When he is little, she's been sick. Her stomach doesn't want to agree with the food she's eating.
She's not feeling well.
She's not feeling well, and now we're buying diapers.
Oh my goodness, what could all of this mean?
What could all this mean? Yes. The last episode, I would like to remind everybody, because I just get the sense that some things are just wished into existence.
Yes.
The last episode, the line was, "Drat it, everybody is having a baby but me." And then immediately after, within, I think that was the letter, January 19th. We're now less than a month later, February 6th.
She was pregnant when she said that. She's like, drat it, everybody's having, and she knew, she didn't know.
She was in that mindset right there. Sweetie's pregnant.
Pregnant.
Mm-hmm.
I'm so happy.
Baby on the way.
Yay.
Yeah.
I'm smiling so much my face hurts.
Yeah. I know. This is why people, if they were on our website, like when this airs, if you were on our website prior to the air date of this episode, when you saw the future episode listing, there was no title for this one given. It was just listed as spoiler. That's it. So if you're not following the website and looking for these little clues being there's something big coming up in that episode, it's a fun thing to do. At least I try to do that because I like to have fun with it. But obviously this will air and that's going to come down and we'll have the actual episode title up here. Yeah, just the idea of the timing. And there's still one more element to this, right? I keep calling it the Mrs. Corey prophecy. He's going to be serving, she's going to get pregnant, and there's one more element of that later, we can talk about that element, but still, it's such a happy moment. I'm just to see this, and she's so happy and he's so happy.
Oh, yes.
And they have this opportunity to shop together. Think of all the soldiers that didn't, where the wives, were pregnant and they were overseas and they don't get this opportunity. So, my heart goes out to even today, just every aspect of, the spouse being away while this is going on. But they're just out shopping for diapers in Kansas. And then all these that's a lot of dimes.
That is a lot of dimes.
That's a lot of dimes. So $47 worth, which, people might be, it's $47. Yeah, $47. Let me go to the inflation calculator here. In 1945, $823 worth of dimes. That's a lot of dimes. So,
oh my gosh.
That's good. That's good for a baby bank. They've been putting stuff aside.
They can get what they need with that, I think. Wow.
They were being responsible, so.
I'm sorry, I can't believe it.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Yep, we're at this point. This is major. So, yeah. And we're going to hear about some more shopping through this letter, so we'll keep going. But if everybody else is celebrating while listening to this and being like, yes, okay.
Right there with you.
Yeah, start of new life. So we'll see what's happening.
We cannot buy the small blue receiving blanket like the one blue one I have. I'm sorry we did not buy them while we were in Des Moines. I hope you'll have a chance if you're in town to buy some blue, if convenient, and I think 3 more would be sufficient. I bought one 69-cent one, blue and white with animals. Looks more like a blanket. We got one crib blanket, not as good as I'd like, for it's cotton, but it's blue, crib size and quite reasonable. Has blue figures on it similar to the cheaper one. I want one solid blue one, all wool, or with part wool. 2 pair stockings, 2 cotton shirts, a little blue sweater, and a little cap. Lou picked those, and they are cute as can be. I want to buy some few more nice things with this money from the baby bank, for as Lou says, it is almost like found money, since it isn't coming directly from our billfolds in one lump. We cannot find even flow bottles either, though they may be found later on. I brought the things on home while Lewis went on out to the base. I had such an armful I had to come on home, and then go back to the store for groceries, and this paper.
She's buying all boy stuff.
Yeah.
So, and
I hadn't thought about that. How does she know?
Well, I can tell you that I knew what my children were. Like my first child, I didn't know because it was very odd. It's kind of odd. It's an odd experience. But I was kind of like, oh, maybe it'll be a boy. That'd be great. But I was like, it's not. She's a girl. I knew she was a girl. And when I had him, I knew. I was like, that's a boy. He's a boy. I even told the ultrasound tech, and she was like, okay, he's 9 weeks. There's no way that you know that that's a boy. And then I went back in for the other ultrasound, and I was like, it's a boy. And she's like, it's a boy. And I was like, I told you. So she's buying all blue stuff.
I wonder if in the 40s, was there as much an association with like the traditional blue for the boy and pink for the girl in the 40s? I feel like that would be traditional. Something like that, I feel, comes through the ages. So I suspect you're right. She thinks it's a boy.
I bet you when she went to Des Moines, and this is all simply speculation. Her and Jeanne did all of the like tests.
Yeah.
Like when you know you're pregnant, they're like,
oh yeah, because Jeanne's an RN, so probably
so
all of that.
I don't know. But I wonder if she knew, if she felt it, if she's like, this is a boy.
I wonder if Chester just like told her or something. I could imagine this being like, it is a boy.
It is a boy.
Like I could see like Chester having like miraculous like medical mason powers and maybe like, just like
too, another thing, like
not for blue things.
When I was pregnant with my first one of my friend's mothers was like, turn around, like just do a little turn. And I was like, she goes, you're having a girl.
Yeah.
So women kind of like and this was something probably like midwifery.
Yeah. Yep.
Like that it was a little bit more common to like have, like the older women who are around you and take care of you, who've had children, who've done this before. So perhaps her mom knew something.
I mean, that is fascinating. I hadn't picked up on that she's buying all blue things, that maybe she'd already like sensed that or felt that, the child would be a boy. So yeah, but we'll continue from here with the rest of the letter because she's having fun shopping. She forgot her paper. Now we know why.
Now we know why. Yeah, she's got baby brain.
Angie, next door, gave me some pills for nausea that I believe have really done some good. For the past 2 days, I've been feeling a lot better. I'm worried now about how I can get some more, for there are just a few left. Lewis has a ration card for cigs now, 1 popular brand and 1 4-pack per day. He took my ID card out and got one for me, so I guess he'll be able to keep going at that rate. Has Sights finally uncovered my suit coat in the closet? I remembered it before we got to Kansas City, but even then, Sights had done his deed. I hope you're getting more sleep and that your cash account doesn't look quite so depleted after its severe thrashing. We do appreciate all you did. I hope the quilt will not be a disappointment to you. I'm getting the hang now. The book is fine, and we're reading it together. Just thank you sounds pretty feeble, so I'll say I hope we can pay you back sometime soon. We do appreciate you and all you do for us. Best love from us both. Lou and Sweetie.
There was some kind of party going on in Des Moines with Jeanne. So
they must have had a good time. Well, of course they did. They love each other. They love spending time together.
So I mean, it's just
so we know she's gonna have a baby.
Yep.
And we also think that Lou is probably gonna get deployed
because Mrs. Corey was really kind of sensing things. She's going to follow him. She's going to get pregnant. There's one aspect left. And we're going to see if we get an update about that. They're still in Kansas from July. It's supposed to be 2 weeks. And now we're in February of 1945.
Unreal.
So they've been in Kansas for some time. But moving into this short letter that we have, an update from them both, 5 days later, February 11th, 1945.
February 11th, 1945. Dear Jeanne, I started a letter to you several days ago, but it never got finished. A friend of Lou's had to cancel his leave, so Lou took it, and we're coming home on the 15th. We're leaving here at 1:35 a.m. Thursday morning, and should arrive about 12 hours later in Des Moines. We're coming by the Rock Island, same as you did, but we've not checked the schedule for sure. We want you to arrange to spend some time with us. Either come to Lacona, or we'll try to stay in Des Moines to be with you. We'll save everything to tell you when we come. I guess we'll go right to Sister to rest. Can you get in touch with us when you get up? We'll be seeing you soon. Love, Lou, and Sweetie.
They're making some trips here, and I think, it's such a stark contrast to 44 where they're like, we can't go anywhere. And they're just waiting for Jeanne to arrive. But now we're in a new year, so there's new leave. So let's get going, traveling all over the place. And he picks up other leave because somebody else had to cancel. And I think everybody at the base is probably like, oh, your wife just got pregnant. She wants to go. So there's probably a camaraderie there with helping out Lou as well. But Rock Island, that's the train line. For people that haven't been following every episode exactly, we knew that it's the Rock Island agent that had messed up when they first went to Hutchinson, right? And she, the puddle jumper, right, had a flat tire. That was the Rock Island line. So that's why she switches to the Santa Fe when she first goes to Hutchinson. So now we're going back to Des Moines by way of the Rock Island line, which is in reference more towards Illinois. But yeah, so back to Jeanne, happy times. But this does continue a little bit, and we do get a little note here from Lou, which I read as best I could, and apologies to the listeners. And you know what? I'm going to somewhat blame Sweetie and Lou for this. When they sign letters, could they just pick a name? So when I'm going through to get the recordings done, don't worry, Andrew's still recording for Lou, but this is just one paragraph, so we'll get the content here regardless.
Oh, I'm so looking forward to this. Here we go.
Dear Nursey, of course, we are only coming to see you. But don't tell the folks that. It might make them feel bad. My own English. So excuse me now, I have to stop. Must put the same thing on their letter. We want to spend all the time possible with you. So either arrange to go to Lacona or something. Of course, I have slept 3 in a bed. Let's see what can be arranged. See you soon, I hope. Sally and Earl. Or Bob and June, or Jack and Joan, or, oh, to hell with it, Louis, Catherine.
He's funny.
Yeah, that got missed because there's 8
you
different
did a
names.
good job.
You
did a good job.
Thank you very much.
It was very good. It was very Lou. But yeah, so in this little note that she wrote, she's like, we want to spend time with you. And Lou was like, no, you have not driven the point home enough that we want to spend time with you. So I'm going to add this little thing. Yeah. So that's sweet. So they'll be able to see them again.
Right. And now we're going to get to a gap in letters here because as everybody can tell, there's a lot of traveling going on. If she's in Des Moines talking to Jeanne, she's not writing to Jeanne as much. If she's in Lacona catching up with her parents, she's not writing with her parents as much. They're kind of out on the town, it would seem, a good amount of time. There's some celebrations, there's some partying going on, there's updates with family. So as a result, we don't get a letter until mid-March. And so what we're going to do now is we're going to talk a little bit again about the historical context of what's going on, because just like with the inauguration early in this episode, there's some major events happening with the war, and it's going to set the stage for the mentality of what's going on for this last letter that we're going to listen to. And it's important to know because we know they're reading the papers, they're listening to the radio, and these things were absolutely going to be talked about. So there's really 2 giant things that happen here, and they're both going to be in the Pacific Theater. The first one is that the Battle of Iwo Jima is going on in this time period. And so this is one of the best known battles, I would say, of World War II with regards to the Pacific Theater. Battle of Iwo Jima is going to last from February 19th of 1945. So 8 days after that last letter we read, and go all the way to March 26th of 1945. So in the time period of the end of the episode here with the letters, Iwo Jima is being fought. And where this is significant is it's a major, major number of men involved in the battle. I actually have here, Jamie, I have the headline of February 19th from the Des Moines Register. So mind you, she's probably in Des Moines looking at this paper, right? When this is going on, which I think is fascinating. We don't know how long the leave is, but we know at least Jeanne's going to be looking at this paper. So here we have just blatantly splashed across the front page, Marines invading Iwo. It says 509 Jap planes destroyed in the attack on Tokyo, our loss 49. So there's some superior air assault that's going on here. And just to give some statistics about Battle of Iwo Jima. So ultimately, this is really Navy and Marines for the American side. 110,000 are going to be involved in this over the 5 weeks. Versus just over 20,000, almost 21,000 Japanese forces. So it's an overwhelming amount of numbers. Remember how we've been reading the letters, like they keep bringing in more men and more men. Ultimately, what this is going to be is you get to the point where you get to superior numbers of forces. And you can see it right on the front page of the paper here. All of these planes being destroyed. There's also 500 ships involved in this. Within this attack. So 500 ships, 110,000 guys in this 5-week battle. The cost is very, very large. The casualties, and this is, killed, wounded, missing, and so on, is for those 5 weeks, 28,000 for the American forces. So major, major battle in World War II that we can't just miss going by. And then on the Japanese side, estimated around 18,000 casualties for the Japanese. When you look at the numbers involved, though, the Americans have 110,000 involved, 28,000 casualties. Japanese have like 21,000 involved, 18,000. This is a devastating, devastating battle for the Japanese. And it's a hard-fought American victory after those 5 weeks are up. And as a result of that, we get the famous photo of Iwo Jima. This is where this comes from. So the flag being raised for our audio listeners by the Marines at Iwo Jima. So that's happening in the interim here. Sweetie doesn't comment on it. Mm-hmm. But, we've been talking about that land invasion of Japan that everybody's worried about. Mm-hmm. Here goes this battle. So that's one aspect. And then the other thing, and this is March 9th to March 10th. So the next letter we're about to go into is from March 14th. So this is only a few days before I'm going to show another headline from the Des Moines Register here, because it gives an idea on something else that's going on. And this is actually, I think, not as publicly looked at, because I think this gets overshadowed by what's going to come in Japan. But we have the headline. This is the headline from March 10th of 1945. It says, first of all, Nazis racing to strike back. But underneath it says 300 B-29s drop 1,300 tons of bombs. Tokyo's heart afire. And I'm going to say this again. It's not 1,300 bombs. It's 1,300 tons of bombs are being dropped in Tokyo. And I was looking at this. This is the World War II bombing of Tokyo from March 9th and March 10th. It's known as Operation Meetinghouse, or the Tokyo Great Air Raid. It is the most destructive single air attack in human history to this day. It was largely the bombs were dropping on downtown Tokyo. Most of the casualties here are civilian. 90,000 to 100,000 Japanese are killed, and about 1 million are left homeless. So we think about Hiroshima and Nagasaki coming up. This is before that. And it's that other reality of, we're already here. Truman's not president yet. We're already here. This land invasion of Japan, just to put us in the mindset of like where the focus is going to be and why the American people are so concerned about the loss that could really happen if there's a land invasion of Japan. It's harder for us to see that today, but when you go into these headlines, you're like, 1,300 tons of bombs are already being dropped, and we're not even at Hiroshima or Nagasaki. We're already there.
And this wasn't in some battle zone. This was in Tokyo. No. These were civilians who were not involved in the war.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I think it kind of puts in perspective what the history books tell us is coming after. But I personally have not heard as much coverage. Now, I don't really study World War II as a historian to the extent of the World War II historians studying it. So, of course, they are going to study this a lot more. But the bombing of Tokyo is, I don't think, in the public mindset as well known as what follows with Hiroshima and Nagasaki. And this is, as it said, the most destructive air attack in human history.
And it's important to note these incredibly these historic events while we're reading these letters. It's important to understand the world that she was living in, the way that the war was going, and we have a tendency to not really not see everything that we just these major events. This is huge.
Yeah,
this is huge. I cannot imagine this would be like them coming into San Francisco and bombing it.
Yeah.
So this is these are very, very important events that we cannot forget.
Yeah. Oh, and there's one more, and this is diplomatic. February 4th through 11th, 1945, not to leave Europe out. What's going on here? The Yalta Conference is happening. So there's those big three conferences. Yalta is Roosevelt, Churchill, and Stalin. And this is the meeting that they're going to have that says, when we've won in Europe, here's how we're going to reorganize Germany and the rest of Europe. So it's really starting to wind down.
When was that?
That's February 4th through the 11th, 1945. So that's also occurring in the time frame here. So they're starting to make the plans to say, here's what we're going to do when Germany surrenders. So, and what's going to happen, and what we know historically is going to happen there. So diplomatic, but this happening, Iwo Jima and the bombing of Tokyo, just some things to sort of bear in mind, because if we put ourselves in their shoes back then, they're thinking, we're already here. There's a land invasion still coming. And Roosevelt's still the president for this. So, all right. But going into changing our tones again and going back to what's going on in Sweetie's world,
Yes, and we have one more letter left.
One more letter. And we come in at March 14th, March 14th, 3/14, 1945.
Hutchinson, Kansas, March 14th, 1945. Dear Jeanne, well, at last it has come. Lose orders and shipping date. We are leaving here either at 1:20 a.m. Saturday or 1:30 p.m. Saturday for Philadelphia. He will have 5 days there before Lou goes on to Floyd Bennett Field in New York. He doesn't know how long he'll be there, what duty he'll have, or anything else. We do know that he's assigned to Fleet Air Wing No. 6, and that he reports the 26th. Write to us at Lou's folks at this address, 936 Springfield Road, Collingdale, Pennsylvania.
And there's the prophecy come true.
Lou's being shipped out.
Lou is finally being shipped out. And when we take those headlines into account that have just happened, the question becomes, where is he going to go? Now, he's going to New York. He's not in San Francisco. He's not in the West, which is in closer proximity to what's going on in the Pacific. He's in New York. So the idea is potentially he's going to be going over to Europe while things are winding down. But we don't have that information yet at this point in this letter. So number of days, they're going to go to Philadelphia. 936 Springfield Road is that Delco, Delaware County, Pennsylvania address where Lou's parents are. Mrs. Corey nailed it, with what was going to happen.
She called it.
They're going to get married. She's going to follow him wherever he goes until she can't. And she's going to wind up and being pregnant. And he's going to get sent overseas.
And she knew this. And there wasn't anything you can do to stop it. But
yep.
I do want to point out, too, it's really interesting. The old addresses.
Yeah.
So there's no zip code.
No.
It's not PA, which is how Pennsylvanians refer to PA. They're Pennsylvania. It's like, I'm from PA. You don't say Pennsylvania. But it says PENNA. I just love that. It's just fun. It's fun to like see like how it wasn't necessary to have zip codes and whatnot.
Oh yeah. And then what was the other thing that I've seen with that? Oh, I love it's always Chester Demery because Lacona's so small. It's always just box 5. Lacona. There's no street address. So,
they're like, oh yeah, the doctors.
Doctor. So, but yeah, it's fascinating.
So they're going to Philadelphia.
They're heading out to Philly.
The box with jacket, book, and stamps came okay, and we were very pleased. We think the book is super and so very well written. We are grateful for it. Them, but I do wish you'd autographed them for us. I'm going to take them with us, along with the quilt that is coming along so very well. Before I forget it, I got 4 even flow bottles with caps and nipples complete, and until we know if I can nurse him, I believe that's enough. The receiving blankets are still not to be found, so we'll appreciate your getting them. However, don't send them to Philly, but send them home to the folks. I'm reasonably sure he'll be born in Iowa. I hope at the hospital. I am right now at the beauty parlor, getting another cold shave. Did we tell you? Joe Graham is due home from London in a couple days, and Marguerite has gone to Philly from Texas. A family reunion for the first time in 2 years. So I decided I'd better do something about straggliness.
I'm going to pause here because there are a couple of things going on. So she wants to get her hair done. She wants to look nice for this family meeting. Marguerite's coming in from Texas. So this is Joe's wife, Marguerite. And Marguerite has family in Texas. That's why she's in the story. She's going to be going back and forth from Texas every now and then. Sweetie's never met Joe before, but we got the Christmas card from Joe, and he's a character.
We do not have Bob's and Florence's address. Will you please send it to us at your very earliest convenience, to the aforementioned address? We've heard from Maida, too, a typical Maida letter, ick. We may even get to see them when they go to New York and New Jersey.
Oh, she really doesn't like Maida.
At least not yet. This is very interesting to me that all of a sudden, because we haven't had, it's interesting. We've had the absence of her writing about certain people.
Mm-hmm.
She hasn't been writing much about Maida at all. And then we get this comment. So it's tough. I don't know if she's close with Maida. I'm guessing from this she's not at this point, at least, for whatever reason. But she's still close to her brother, Frank. There's the big relationship there. So, but then we get Bob's and Florence's address. They don't have it. So Bob's still over in the States. We knew that he'd been around for the holiday season. Now Frank's back, at least he was at the beginning of the letters of this episode. So New York and New Jersey, we've got the reunion of the siblings here happening in the East, not happening in Iowa. So Bob and Florence, we're trying to figure out at this point, where are they? Because it would seem they're both still in the States. And we also get the sense that Frank is somewhere around New York and New Jersey, and she's going to be in Philly. So we might get this grant, and then Joe Graham's coming in. Hold the phone.
Oh man, this is going to be epic.
There's going to be some stuff going on. So what'd she say? I got to go get my hair done. Better get my hair done. Yeah.
I've got all the diapers I need now, 5 dozen. You wrote sister was looking for diapers for a gift. So would you drop her a line? I'm going to write to the folks right now to tell them we're leaving. So I'd better stop now. I may not have time to write sister, so you tell them please. I hate to go. I'm worried about the safety of such a trip, but I guess there's nothing else to do. But this I know. If Lou is sent out, I am to come home just as soon as I can gracefully get away, 'cause I want to have this baby myself. Get me. Write soon, Jeanne. Up there, I need your letters. My very best love, Sweetie and Lou.
Oh, goodness.
She's like, this baby's going to be born in Iowa.
Yeah, she's set, I know that she was kind of going back and forth about when he was deployed and what was going to happen and stuff. But no, now that she has the baby, she's like, I'm going to be in Iowa.
I'm going to be good. I'm going to go home. I'd like to have it at the hospital. Chester's probably like, I can handle it just fine.
He's like,
dude,
no
just
problem.
Build the chairs already. Focus, Chester, focus. Yeah,
but I'm sure she wants to be with her mother. She wants to be with her father. And and especially if she can't have her Lou. So.
If she can't have Lou, she's gonna have Jeanne.
Mm-hmm.
She wants to be with Jeanne. And we see that at the end of the letter. Like, the letters from Jeanne is what's going to keep her going. And she's very, very aware of that. But that's the last letter for this episode, the big episode in which we get the reveal. As we move through 1945, because we had a lot of content for 1944, 1945 is going to go relatively quickly. There's going to be a lot of activity with Sweetie being around other people. We just saw it between February and March. So I encourage everybody strongly to listen in with as much consistency as you can for the 1945 portion here as we head towards, amazingly, Jamie, the end of season 1 of the Love Sweetie podcast. It's going to come up faster than I think people expect. And we are going to dive immediately into season 2 the following week when that begins. But it's exciting that we're at this point. Oh, and there's one other thing we should mention about this letter from March 14th. This is the last letter from Hutchinson, Kansas. So for the people who are listening in from Kansas, this is the end of the storyline in Hutchinson here, because Lou's leaving and Sweetie's heading east with him. But for a story of a place where we really thought we'd only be there a couple weeks, to be there, 8 months? It's really been quite a narrative, detailed story. We really appreciate that. The other thing is, we're going to be getting online the history of NIS Hutchinson that's put together. So as sort of the grand finale for people that want to hear about that base, because there's very little out about there. That's going to be posted, which is great. But yeah, thank you to the people of Kansas. Thank you for the residents of Kansas, especially around Thanksgiving, that were taking care of Lou and Sweetie when they literally had nobody there. Yeah. Now we're going to the opposite, where she's around a lot of family, but it was very much a lonely time. My dad, I remember when I first said, well, they were in Kansas, said, I never even knew that they lived in Kansas. Yeah.
They were in Kansas for a while.
That's a decent amount of time. Yeah, to have.
They got established, they had people that they knew. She was aware of the, So yeah, but it's not the same as Ottumwa. I was very sad when we left Ottumwa, because it was such a big part of her life.
Right.
And Hutchinson was a nice layover.
It was.
Nice layover.
But what we can say here is Ottumwa was a major part of her life, and Hutchinson is where she becomes pregnant. So it has that mark in the history books of the Love Sweetie story. So, but yeah, now we're heading east, heading to Delco with the water. So
we're coming to Pennsylvania, and I could not be more excited.
Yep. Story's starting to shift to Pennsylvania. Well, thank you everybody for listening in this week. Again, please like, share, and subscribe to the Love Sweetie podcast on YouTube. Please leave a review, the ratings on the Apple Podcast, Spotify, all the audio channels. Check out the website, www.lovesweetiepodcast.com, and we'll pick up the story again next week on the East Coast. Bye.